The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio. Want the real story behind the sound bites and headlines? Let's find the facts. Remember, it's not a conspiracy theory if it's the truth. You are not paranoid or confused. You just need to know.
Welcome in, everybody. It is another week of the show that you can't afford to miss. Kip Kiefer on the TKR network with Need to Know. And I'm going to start off this week by talking about last week's show and even probably the previous week. I've been a little fired up here lately, and I kind of... when you do these kind of programs and, you've just got the spotlight on yourself and the stage, and you can pretty much present in any format, any style, any level of enthusiasm, let's call it, or fanaticism, or whatever you want to tag on that particular dynamic. I was curious last week because I got the feeling that, and I think I even wrapped up the show by saying, sorry if I got into rant and raving mode, because that's really not my intention on this show. But there are things that I'm passionate about that I think need to be emphasized. And if I have been overly, carried away with trying to make my point, I tend to get loud, and I tend to get, pretty fast talking. I'm going to try to do a more measured show today because I don't want to be tagged as some kind of, lunatic broker. I think that, once again, the premise of this show is pretty solid. I don't want to tell you what to think. I just want to give you things to think about. And because in this modern day era, so many of the information services are not the conventional things that I grew up with. Not to say that it's any kind of decline in terms of the amount of information that's out there, but all of the information is no longer, in most cases, presented in a way that gives you a chance to form your own perceptions and your own opinions. Most people are telling you just what I mentioned before, what they think you should think. And that is not what I intend to do here, because I think the greatest thing about this country is free speech and individual liberty. Everybody needs to have that opportunity to weigh all of the facts that they can gather and make good decisions and good opinions based on your belief systems and how you filter and interpret that information. And again, if I'm not an agent to just provide maybe some fill in the blanks of things that you don't hear in conventional media, because what we do here on Need to Know certainly focuses on those things, where once again, that is a completely biased form of, you can't really call it media, it's propaganda. Let's cut to the chase exactly what it is. We've had an interesting couple of weeks because of the absolute frenzy, hoopla, unbelievable, just apoplectic reaction by everybody who does not like Donald Trump. And now Elon Musk has become public enemy number one. This was a guy that just a couple of years ago was admired across the globe for being one of the most original thinkers and innovative entrepreneurs and most successful, richest man in the world. And now you would think this guy is wearing one of those little, I guess, what did the Nazis, where did that thing on their sleeve, was that something that you just pulled up like a, I guess you just rolled it on your sleeve and pulled it up. But you would think that Elon Musk had just introduced a line of swastika clothes. He's being called a Nazi. He's being accused of giving the Nazi Heil Hitler salute. when the actual footage they're basing that on was when Trump said something in one of his inaugural speeches about going to the moon, and he threw both hands up in the air like "Hallelujah, President sees my vision," and the camera caught him lowering his right arm at the perfect time, and resembled that salute. But this guy is no Nazi. This guy is the ultimate entrepreneur. This guy was a hero of the very people that are absolutely assailing him now. And his crime is not what he's doing to try and, cut into the ridiculous, unbelievable, inexcusable waste of billions and billions of dollars of mine and your money in Washington. He is being assailed for one reason and one reason only. He has thrown in full bore with Donald Trump, and these leftists can't stand it. Trump was already a guy they couldn't control. Trump was already a complete, monkey in the wrench of all the things that they had tried to build up over this last 20 years to transform this country into something that was never intended to be. And now, with even a more formidable force in Elon Musk on the team, it is just freaking them out. They don't know what to do. They don't know where to turn. All they can do is attack. And, the latest thing is the implementation of the new tariff policy by Donald Trump. We've talked about tariffs on the show before. The left is talking about this being one of the greatest economic disasters of all time because the stock market has tanked. But there's a reason for that we'll get into in just a minute. The whole thing is the hypocrisy of this leftist progressive movement is so absurd. And this basically attempt to take over your government is so far-fetched and just ill-conceived in its whole motive that if you go back and watch just from back in the 90s, early 2000s, you see every single leader of the leftist movement and the Democrat Party that gave speeches back in that era on how, and it was mostly during the George W. Bush presidency, of how our country is being totally irresponsible to allow ourselves to be cheated and hornswoggled by every trading partner we have. You had speeches from Bernie Sanders, from Nancy Pelosi, from Chuck Schumer. And these aren't things from my memory. These are tapes that I've watched this week of all of these people railing that the imbalance in U.S. trade is killing our country and our manufacturing and our farmers and our ranchers and our fishermen and everybody producing products in America can't compete globally because we let people send all of their products into this country in bundles and in unthinkable quantities. And if we try to import any products made in America to those countries, they all have imposed tariffs, some as high as 60 and 65% in some cases, where the importation of products for American manufacturers, farmers, ranchers, etc., is impossible. A good example of that in Australia, who's a partner of ours, who's a friend of ours, Australia, in terms of tariffs that they collect, it's in the area of any product of America that's imported there has been over $29 billion last year, whereas Australian goods coming to America are not taxed at all. You've got things like the beef from Australia that comes in. It accounts now, and beef from Australia and other places around the world is almost 70% of our beef consumption in this country. And the reason that beef is being brought in from around the world as opposed to American beef producers is once again because of these tariffs. The beef producer cannot compete. American beef is superior to almost every beef product in the country. Maybe Japanese and some of their Wagyu and some of those other real high-end brands are comparable. But the bottom line is American beef producers are being run out of town by the uh, uh, importation of mass amounts of product that they can't compete with, because to do the superior job they do and to have these cheap uh, competitors from around the world sending in their product with no restriction in terms of what it's going to cost them economically, they can cut their prices to the bone. It's a question of volume instead of value for them. So they can send their products cheaply. Shrimp is another great example. Do you know that 92% of the American consumption of shrimp comes from foreign shores? We've got a thriving, or used to be thriving, shrimp industry, of course, in Florida and Louisiana on the Gulf of America, and these producers are just about out of business. It's the same with farmers and their crops. All of these American businessmen. So what Donald Trump has done by saying, "Okay, we're going to do what the Democrats were screaming we needed to do," and back 30 years ago, we are going to take away this imbalance. We are going to make it competitive. If you want to charge our farmers, our manufacturers, our producers, you want to charge them 30, 40, 50, even 60% tariffs, we're going to impose the same charge on you. All of a sudden, the shipment of beef and shrimp from all over the world and all these other products, predominantly from China, which takes basically no importation of American products, but it's total importation of what they produce. When you cut that, when you actually tack on the same massive tariffs that they're charging Americans, all of a sudden, guess what? They're lined up at the door. Every every major manufacturer, every major product producer, whether it's organic or textiles or whatever you want to name, all those people have to have the American market, which is by far the biggest, most lucrative market to be doing business in. They have to have them on board in order to survive. So when you do finally level the playing field, you're going to get the Wall Street meltdown that you've gotten. Stocks have dropped dramatically because all of these elite fat cat corporations are thriving on the fact that they don't have to pay for production of goods in America. They can get rid of all their manufacturing plants, ship them to cheaper countries that can do it for, pennies on the dollar of what it was, here in America. And they can bring in all of these imported products and peddle those instead of American product, because the playing field isn't level. Americans can't compete there, but the other people from around the world can do whatever the hell they want at a very cheap rate. And that's why Wall Street is all bummed out, because they don't know how the world reaction is going to be. Trump is messing with their perfect system. You've got all these people that manipulate the markets and bring in the cheapest products they can possibly bring in and charge still the rates that they would charge for the domestic product. And so they're laughing all the way to the bank. All of their profits are through the roof, all of their stock value, all the things that manipulate all the money markets are in their favor. And now that Trump is rocking the boat and siding with all of the American producers, the farmers, the fishermen, the ranchers, the people that produce sheets and towels or any manufactured product that you can think of. He is siding with those people on Main Street and telling Wall Street, you know what? The emphasis is no longer on you. And the Democrat Party, that's so up in arms, is so reliant for funding on these people that have been making a killing on all these foreign markets and all these cheap foreign products. The Democrat Party now, who was all for tariffs before, now are certainly stepping up and saying this is the worst thing ever. It's going to plunge us into recession. We're never going to recover. We're doomed. That's what they're saying. And what they're saying is totally self-serving and ridiculous. You know, I had the thought of a movie, just a scene that always got my attention, and it was a James Bond movie, the very first one that Daniel Craig starred in when he took over as James Bond. Now he's out, and we don't know who the next James Bond's going to be. But Daniel Craig starred in Casino Royale, which was a remake of the spoof James Bond movie made back in the 60s. But it was Casino Royale was a great novel, one of the many great novels, James Bond novels by Ian Fleming. But there's a scene in that movie where Bond is playing actually in a poker tournament overseas in I don't know, Monaco or somewhere, and he's playing because the guy that they're trying to take down, an international criminal financier. I don't need to get in the whole story, but the bottom line is Bond is kind of hornswoggled by somebody who's double crossed him and loses a monster hand and doesn't have the funding now to continue in the game. So he's desperately trying to raise the money. And there's a scene where American CIA representative Felix Leiter, who's been a character in James Bond movies since the 1960s, Felix Leiter's been played by like 8 different actors. But Felix Leiter, who started off as a frumpy old, wearing a cheap suit white guy back in the 1960s for the first couple of editions of James Bond movies. And then as time went on, he morphed into a kind of really cool, cutting edge character, yet like younger guy. Didn't, a lot of times just not even wearing a suit, just a dress shirt. And nowadays, I don't know what the actor's name was. I should have looked it up, but it's a super cool, chill black guy who, very, very sophisticated. Anyway, while Bond was desperately trying to get back into the game by arranging financing, Felix Leiter comes to him in the hotel and says, and he's playing in the tournament too, representing American interests, because this desperate criminal has to win this, whatever it is, $100 million jackpot to put himself back in position to resume his criminal enterprise. Anyway, Leiter comes to Bond and says, I think you can beat him. I know you can beat him. He says, I'm bleeding chips. I can't contend. You're the guy that we need. The United States will back you to get back into the game. It was I think a $10 million buy-in to get back in. And they go on to talk about it. And he said, but the only thing we want, if Lashif when you beat him, we want to take custody of him because he's going to have to make a deal, or the underworld, where he's frittered away all their money, is going to do him in. He's got to come in from the cold, as they say, and make a deal. He said, the CIA wants him. That's the price of us buying you back in. And Bond said, well, this is the line that I think every American needs to think about coming from a British perspective. Bond says to Felix Leiter, well, if we take him down, What about the winnings? And again, I think it's like $100 million. He says, what about the winnings? And Leiter looks at him and says, do you think we need the money? So basically, he says, yeah, if you win, great. We get custody of the bad guy, but you guys, England, keep the money. Um, do you think we need the money? I think that was a really telltale line of how the world perceives the United States. And that's been one of the reasons that, you know, you can trace that back, that attitude that we have that we're the richest, most successful country in the world. We don't need to worry about little details like, getting fair trade deals from the rest of the world. In fact, we had a movement, Bill Clinton, a Democrat, got the NAFTA deal through. And the NAFTA deal was not economically feasible for the United States. It was basically a total free trade agreement. But when one side's charging a bunch of money, it's not free trade. It's just disproportionate trade. So I hope that's a good example of what we're talking about here, that the playing field needed to be leveled. Now, let me say this economic plan that Trump has, this is just one big cog in the wheel. The tariffs and getting the trade disparity more on balance. And Trump has said, I don't think you can be more reasonable than this. Look, if you don't want me to impose big tariffs on your country, then we need to make a deal where we both have a reasonable, reciprocal deal. So you go to India, which charges us like 65 to 70% tariffs or more on a lot of products. You see all kinds of importation from India. If you go to India and look for American products and services, no such thing. Cars are the worst. Japan, Thailand, South Korea, all these people that are our allies now, even Vietnam, who's trying to be a capitalistic society. All of these countries just have these one-sided deals. If you walk around in this country, how many South American and Japanese cars do you see? They're here by the absolute gazillions. But go to Tokyo, go to Seoul. How many American cars are you going to see? If you see one in 10 years, that's probably a lot. Same thing in Germany, throughout Europe. It's just not a fair deal. Fair trade is not fair if one side is charging a bunch of money to import your product and basically getting away scot-free of sending all of their stuff into your market. And American consumers that are worried about prices skyrocketing and they're being warned that this is going to cause runaway inflation and recession, well, there's a real good solution for that. Guess what you can do, American consumer? You can just buy nothing but American products. You don't have to buy products from foreign providers. But here's the other deal in this where it gets sticky. Remember during COVID when we were scrambling to try and come up with solutions to fixing what was broken, getting all kinds of innovative situations into our markets. All the car producers started creating ventilators, which was not in their skill set, but they acclimated their mass production plants and delivered not only ample ventilators to keep people alive for our country, but they shipped them all around the world to save, as usual, Americans saving the ass of people from all over the world in various circumstances. But remember, the big problem we had was we have, once again, because corporations can get all of this product so much more cheaper by having it produced overseas in China and Indonesia and all these different places in the world. The corporations have gotten away from American manufacturing because we actually have to pay our workers a decent wage. and they let all this product be imported, we had a terrible shortage in our country of antibiotics and all kinds of other prescription medicines because we have shipped all of that out overseas. That is a national security issue. What about the next pandemic that they create and send all over the world? What if they just decide, you know what? We're not going to send any medicine to America, no matter how lucrative it is, because this is a weapon of war. If we deny the American people the medicines they need to recover, it's one of the most lethal weapons you can possibly imagine. So there's so many practical considerations to why this move needed to be made. But here's the rest of the story. As I said, this is just one component. The ball now is firmly in the court of the United States Congress, because the rest of the plan, or the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey used to say so eloquently, is the massive tax cut package that was implemented by Trump back in 2016 when he was elected, when he started his presidency in 2017, to do across the board tax cuts for all Americans. And even the Democrats under the pseudo administration referred to as the Biden administration, although it was actually the third Obama administration, they never rescinded those tax cuts. They could have done it, but they knew that the outrage from the American people would drive them straight into the unemployment line, which it did anyway because they pushed so many other aspects that were unpopular with Americans that we have talked about at length on this show. But the bottom line, they left those tax cuts in place and they expire at the end of this year. Congress has got to step up and make that happen, because to my mind, the biggest part of this plan is implementing those tax cuts at the levels that Donald Trump wants now. He had cut corporate tax rates from about 36% down to 21% in 2017, which is a huge drop. That's a one-third drop in the corporate tax. That immediately stimulated a lot more manufacturing in America, a lot more hiring, better wages. People across the board in our country, if you remember in 2017, were getting pay raises where there'd been freezes for years on increasing people's wages and benefits. That one move from 36 to 21 was huge. Now Trump is proposing 15% corporate rate. 15%. The 21 was in line with a lot of other places in the country. 15 will be the lowest in the world, and it will make manufacturing in America so much more successful again. It will be the biggest shot in the arm for American business and production, maybe ever. And if that tax package, which is now on the move, with the Senate just passing their version of it on the weekend, it's been sent to the House, and hopefully within the next couple of weeks, that will be in the bank, and that is going to be huge. And don't buy the banana BS that the Democrats are trying to feed you, saying, well, this is just a tax cut for the billionaires. The billionaire party now is no longer the Republicans. The billionaire party is the Democrats. They are representing all of the elites, all of the corporate giants, all of the foreign investors, all the money market manipulators in the world are agents and partners full scale with the Democrat Party. So when they tell you that Trump is just trying to enhance the pocketbooks of billionaires, that is absolutely laughable. The permanent tax cuts that are going to be passed by Congress that are desperately needed to give the American economy and the American people great confidence is going to be across the board. And people that are in the lower tax brackets that are already paying too much, they will have that tax cut be permanent and not have to worry about paying thousands of dollars more if the rates go back to their original 2016 levels. So that part of this deal is absolutely essential to making manufacturing come back to this country. Trump has already signed on about $6 trillion of foreign investment, even domestic investment. Apple, of course, had sent all of their manufacturing overseas. The great Democrat Party, the great Democrat bastion of the people, the leftist progressive organizations. But all of those organizations have woke up. They're all in business, and they saw what happened in the election. They saw how you voted. They saw how you weighed in on all their policies. And now you've got Facebook and Instagram. Zuckerberg is buying a house in Washington so he can be more politically active. He has been buddying up with Trump. He has pledged to bring a lot of his manufacturing and development of product back into this country. Apple's the biggest one, pledging to build billion-dollar facilities that's going to employ so many people and start bringing manufacturing back here of iPhones and iPads and all of their innovative products. You're going to see a sweeping move in the automobile industry. Hyundai is building I think a $25 billion plant in Western Texas. It's already starting because people that are really in the know understand exactly what this movement is all about, and it is already starting. But Congress needs to seal the deal with the permanent tax cuts and all of the other concessions to the Trump agenda that they have to put into play to make this happen. And right along with that, Elon Musk and Doge saving us billions and billions of dollars in tax, in your tax money being frittered away through waste, abuse, fraud, and what I always add to that, theft, because it's being flat out stolen by so many operatives, so many people on the inside of these deals. When they manipulate the money and it moves around and the government allocates money to all these sources, I've said for the last couple of weeks, if you've been tuned in, this is a giant merry-go-round. It's the greatest slush fund ever invented, and it's getting in the pockets of everybody who's complicit in making it happen. And Trump has said enough. He's choosing the American people over the American financial manipulating elites, and it's the greatest thing for John Q. Citizen that can possibly be imagined. So get on the phone, get on your connection, your devices, send a message to your representatives in the House and Senate from wherever you live, whatever state you're in. Say, get on board. Get the tax agenda, get the Trump agenda, I should say, passed, because this is what is going to be the deal sealer in this whole jigsaw puzzle that needed to be addressed, and that the people opposing it right now were demanding be addressed 30 years ago. Now they're on the other side because they're playing for the winning team right now economically. Their pockets are stuffed with money. That's why representatives come out of Washington rich beyond their wildest imagination, because they make so much money while in office. And that's why even lifelong bureaucrats are living in these opulent, unbelievable gated communities all around Washington, D.C. and in Northern Virginia. These people are all profiting personally from your hard work and the deduction of about a third of your wages from your weekly paycheck. It's time to put that money back in your pocket, put industry back in this country, create jobs, have great opportunities for all Americans, and revive so many cities in our country that are just wastelands now, with all of their industry and business gone for good. They are not to be seen anymore, and it's time to bring all that back and make this country great again, like the slogan says. That's what I had on my mind today. I hope I didn't get into ranting and raving too much. I wanted to stay measured because I thought that was such an important message to convey. The tariffs is just the first shot over the bow. Now it's Congress's job and it's Trump's administration's job to negotiate the best trade deals we can get with these countries and start having American products manufactured in America be the priority for our country going forward. I'm Kip Kiefer. I hope the message has resonated. Tell everybody that you're associated with, your family, friends, co-workers. Tell your congressman, tell your senator, get busy, get this stuff passed. Let's get America back on track because it's time to start self-serving all these other manipulators and people that have been benefiting from the economic situation in our country being global. We're out of the globalist business. It's America first, America only going forward. It's the only sensible direction to go. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week right here on TKR.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.